Hello everyone, my name is Anitsu and I'm back with another Digimon video. So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, and this is kind of an experiment on color correction. So we all know that the Ultimate Cup is just around the corner, and we're all getting ready with what we're going to be building and playing, and I thought I'd take the time to kind of explain what I think are some of the best decks in each of their respective colors, and kind of going over a course correction on how to be able to edit these decks to be able to fit them in line with the Ultimate Cups. The purple decks, you could kind of change them to basically fit the BT11 Cup because it's following a very similar rule set, but I digress, and this is just an experimentation in color correction. So I'm not really going to have a particular order to this. I was just thinking going top down. All of the lists I'm basically going to be grabbing from top tournament results as far as the base, and then I'm going to be making the color corrections to them. So let's start off with D-Reapers. So D-Reapers is a pretty easy list in terms of how you want to build it or how it was built, because for the most part D-Reapers was pretty self-contained. So let's go to where D-Reapers hides, which is in BTEX2. So we're going to want to play about 20 searchers on base, usually. Then 4 Pendulum Feet, 4 Bubbles, about 3 to 4 Jerrys, 2 Creepy Hands, 2 Pallades, 2 Horn Strikers, 3 Reapers, so we could actually see Reapers, 4 Gatekeepers, because it's the best card in the whole entire deck, and then Mothers. 4 Mothers. So already we kind of have a really solid core or shell as far as the BT9 changes that were made to the deck. I think X Antibody is a pretty good option here still because it is in white, and we want to try to get as many sources underneath our Mother as fast as we possibly can. So we're probably going to want about 3 of those. And then I was thinking as far as a nice utility kind of a card. X Program actually isn't that bad in this style of deck. Just because it's a white option, we're already playing around with X Antibody, so we could be able to protect our Digimon, and it's just a good removal card in general. So we could think about utilizing X Program as a potential option that we could use, but as far as some other good tech cards, we just need to look at what white has to offer us. So if we really wanted to, we could even think about utilizing Sister Mont Blanc just to be able to cycle through our cards a little bit more, acting kind of similar to what our Searcher is doing, but I think we don't necessarily really need to do that. As far as some of the other cards, we could think about playing some White Tamers. So we do have Analog Youth where we could just use it as a cheap searcher. Again, I don't necessarily think it's that needed, considering none of our Digimon are levels, so the second part of the ability is just never going to happen. Emergency Program Shutdown isn't that bad of a card for us to consider using, just because it is a little bit cheaper than X Program. And even though it's not removing, it's stopping the opponent from utilizing options, so it could really protect some of your more pivotal turns and try to disrupt the opponent at the same time. What does this card do? Unsuspend one of your Digimon. So we could think about using this card even though none of the other abilities matter. I just don't think the unsuspension is really that needed. You could do some really cute things where if you do have a Pallades head, you could suspend it to delete one of the opponent's Digimon, use that white option to unsuspend Pallades' head, and then try to use it to basically act like a pseudo removal. So it's not like it's that bad for the deck. Then we do have white plugin for just some generic DP boosting, which again isn't too bad. It's just, again, I don't know if we exactly need it. Considering the one thing that the deck kind of is lacking is that removal aspect. We do have some other White Tamers that we could think of using in the form of Digimon Emperor. I think one of the best White Tamers, if we were to literally use any of them, would it be Takumi, just because all of our Digimon aren't levels, so the all turns effect isn't harming us. Most of the time, it's probably not going to end up hurting the opponent either, and unfortunately, we're not Digivolving, so maybe this isn't really the best. This would just be a cute card to try to shut the opponent's low-level aggro down. So I think based on everything that white has to offer, there's not really too many changes that I would consider making. So maybe one X program and one emergency program shutdown. And we're just trying to fill out what the rest of white has to offer in terms of how we could utilize our Mother D Reaper. So if we just get a quick, good glance at the deck, I think this is so far just a pretty decent core or foundation. If you really wanted to, you could think about cutting a Jerry and adding like another option or something. I think maybe paying 8 for X program is a little bit on the expensive side, but it's going to be used up mostly in the mid to late game when your Mother should have a good enough sources underneath to be able to just delete one of the opponent's Digimon or multiple of the opponent's Digimon, and then you're just going to start playing yours for cheap. So it kind of is a weird card for the deck to use, but it's one of the only removal that the deck has, which is a little bit on the unfortunate side. So I think like maybe something like this could be pretty okay. I don't know if you want to go up on the blockers and down on the options. You have that creative liberty, but for the most part, when it comes to D-Reapers, it definitely is looking like the best white deck compared to Eosmon, where you have to make a lot of creative liberties in order to flesh out its low end, and I think it's just not going to work out in the end. And something as simple as D-Reapers is going to be really easy to adapt because its core is already so self-contained and you're just splashing in a couple of tech cards inside of it. So as far as what Merva could do without the Cerberus package, it's just going to try to do the traditional evolution. So we're going to go with 4 Minerva. Full card. And then we're going to go 3 Merva. Then when it comes to the level 5s, let's just, look at purple level 5s. So if the whole goal is to get up into Merva and have it be as annoying as it possibly can be, I definitely think that some speed and tempo is kind of needed. So I kind of like utilizing some good tempo tools. Like, where'd it go? Where'd Skullmera go? I'll just make my life easier. There we go. So we definitely want some good tempo, and I think Skullmeramon is just a really good tempo card, because if you, like, depending on how the opponent is playing, just hard dropping for 5 a Skullmera going into a Minerva just is not bad at all. I don't think that's a terrible play. And then as far as the level 5 that was designed for the deck, it definitely seems that the Blue Mervamon, or Blue Meramon, is a really good card because it basically is doing everything that the Lady Devi is doing, except actually supporting the deck. So we still get that draw 2, discard 2, which means when we Digivolve up into it, we get that draw 3, discard 2, and then the inheritable effect, if we Digivolve into our Mervamon, we still are able to gain a memory and play a Digimon out for free, which is pretty decent. Then on top of that, going down a level, so let's look at the champions. So we know that this is actually the key card and not necessarily this. This is just a byproduct to be able to get us to have this. So I definitely think we're going to want to run, again, some of the more native support that the deck came with. So we're probably going to want to run retaliation-based cards. So we have Dark Lizardmon is probably one of the best retaliation-based cards, just because the on-delete ability is pretty annoying, because we want to try to crash into the opponent's Digimon, or if we're just attacking with Rush into the security, if it dies, we still get some sort of benefit. I would consider Soulmon for this, and you easily could, but I think there might just be some better cards, so I'm going to, like, tentatively put, like, 1 Soulmon. But I think as far as, like, just good consistency tools, the Ice package is still just absolutely insane at being able to set up everything and anything you need, just because you have Eismon to draw, basically, draw you 3 and discard 2, which is doing something very similar to Dark Lizardmon that we're already doing. So I think Eismon's pretty good and spicy. And then we probably would want some extra defense, so probably Blocker Devi is still just good. Either Blocker Devi or the Vilemon. It's kind of your choice on what you want in that kind of situation. So I think like maybe 2 Blocker Devis. I do like Blocker Devi over Vilemon just because the stats sometimes don't really matter, and the tempo and efficiency this card could give kind of is just making this a little bit better. Especially if we're just trying to get up into our level 6 as quickly as we possibly can. We literally could be like, okay, Evo for 0, Evo for 1, Evo for 2, Mega. Then we don't care what this Mega is doing, because we're just going to try to be aggressive with it and then have it die and then spawn out our other Digimon. So, like, that allows these tempo tools to be actually pretty good. Then, as far as rookies, I think this is just a pretty easy thing for the deck. Considering the rookies have kind of been, like, the best purple rookies that we've been playing with for a while. So obviously we're going to want to run Ignitemon because that card synergizes with the deck, being a Cross Hearts for our Merva, which is already pretty nice. Then we're probably just going to be running the rest of like the good purple stuff. So we're going to be running some Sykes, we're going to be running some Gazis, and then we're going to be running some Gabus. Just because the Gabu's inheritable ability combos now with Dark Lizardmon, and it combos with Icebon, as we've already seen. And then obviously the best egg for the deck. Let me check my... So stat-wise, we're looking pretty okay on our curve. And then as far as just some other cards to think about including, because we're on like Tamers and Options, I don't necessarily think that we need that many Tamers. Our eggs are going to be like the easiest thing. So purple literally has only one good egg, and it's still Demi-Meramon, so we're just going to be running Demi-Meramon. So as far as the options that we're going to be playing with, we do have a lot of decent options that we could still run. So as far as the best purple option, we're going to be running the 1 copy of Calling from the Darkness that we're allowed to run. I think in this type of a build, Pandemonium Flame is pretty good. And then we've always had the ability to use Deathclaw, because Deathclaw is basically doing the same thing as Pandemonium Flame, just has a little bit of a lower output, but it could still perform relatively nicely. And then we could kind of run from here just whatever other cards we feel like we want to play. So we could play some Jackraid, we could play a Tamer. So I kind of do just like Jackraid because we have the ability to fill up our trash pretty quickly, and then maybe like either a Tamer or a memory boost wouldn't be bad. So I think like the best purple Tamer is still just going to be Matt. But we don't necessarily have to run him, and we could run something like the starter deck Matt instead if we really wanted to just have a cheaper Tamer. But I do like the recursion and reusing factor that purple Matt has to offer. So I think something like this in terms of a Merva build still could be pretty efficient, even though we're not trying to do the whole loopy-doopy thing. We still have a lot of ways to be able to gain a lot of value out of our cards and make the most out of our deck. Again, like I said, with the options in Tamer, you could kind of have some flexibility to be able to do whatever you feel like you think you want to do, and then it's just your stereotypical go up the stack and do some really strong and powerful things. So I think this is a pretty good core or foundation for what Mervamon could be doing in this type of a format. But obviously, if you're playing in the Beelzemon Cup, that doesn't have the purple limitations, so by all means, go hog wild with the Merva Loop, and I think that's going to be a better build for that type of environment. So we have our Beelstar deck. So obviously, to color correct it, we actually don't have a lot that we need to change. So we're going to be mostly running the purple stuff, which they are currently already running the purple stuff. So we get to take out the Death X's, and then we get basically 2 extra filler slots to do whatever we want with. So I think Trump Sword is kind of the worst of the options. I don't know if we have exactly enough memory generation to be able to hard play this to get value. But we definitely could, just because this has, this gives our Digimon with Retaliation the Rush ability, which this is what this card kind of wanted to do anyway. So I kind of like where this is already headed in terms of a list because we're just hard playing our megas anyway. So I think like to really flesh this list out, maybe a couple more rookies or just some more options and tamers might be the way to go. So I'm not entirely sure why they ran the Sunamon when a card is trash from our hand. I guess I see that. So we really could just play whatever we feel like, which is kind of nice, and the deck isn't really changing that much, even though, yes, having the other colored options would be nice and would be helpful. This kind of just is the easiest way to be able to adapt the deck to make it playable. So she's just bringing out Cross Hearts, and that's it? Yeah. So I think maybe, like, one more Genkumon, or no, we probably would want to go up on the rookies. So I'd probably just play 2 more Floodgates and call it a day. Just because that puts me at the 14 rookie count. We have lots of good synergy. If you wanted to, you could take out the Gabumon on attack and replace it with the Gabumon on delete, just because they're doing already some very similar things, just to try to like clean up the deck a little bit. But I do really kind of like this spread in terms of the rookie lineup, because you have Ignite to play with the Merva. You even have Ignite to play with Beelstar if you just have a level 4 with this card underneath to be able to gain tempo and value when you're using your Nail Bones. So I kind of do like that synergy that it has there. The Floodgates are just Purple's best cards. Then the Devimon works with the Retaliation off of the Merva. Again, I don't necessarily know exactly how they're getting to this memory count to be able to use Merva and not pass the turn. But you could probably go down a Merva and play like another option instead, just because this card is a little bit on the awkward side because it's going to cost so much most of the time. So you could probably just maybe run like another Trump Sword or another Tamer in its place. So if I were this type of a player, I would probably consider running another Tamer or a Memory Boost to be able to do something else still. So, because what's my best case scenario? So I would probably run another mat just to be able to recur some of my low level Digimon that I need to. Even though it's not like super great to have multiple, that's kind of where Loemon comes in to act as a hybrid to be able to make sure that I could use them. But there's an argument for not utilizing another mat and utilizing another Sora and Mimi, just because I want to try to gain that extra memory to be able to start my turn off at 7 to be able to Merva, and this increases the likelihood of that happening. So I think going heavier on the Sora and Mimis might actually be more beneficial. And I don't have to suspend them in order to use Loemon, and if I already have a Mat, then Mat and Loemon just already synergizes. So I kind of like where this is going. In terms of being able to adapt a Beelstar, do I think it's better than just utilizing some blue and doing some other stuff? Of course not, but given the fact that we're just working with one color, I think this is a pretty solid core or foundation for Beelstar. And then Beelzemon, the last deck on the list. Beelzemon is pretty much untouched as far as I'm aware of. Because this is Ultimate Cup, we will not have access to the Beelzemon starter deck, which is a little bit unfortunate because it does make the deck perform a lot better. But Beelzemon still has like a lot of really strong cards that it wants to use. So it still has the Impmons that it can use in order to just, beat Impmon. And make sure that our Beelzemon is going to be as playable as possible. We still have the Beelzemon that synergizes with some of the mill synergies. Unfortunately, we don't have the security promos just yet, but that's okay. Let's go with the stack. So we still have these, then let's go with the BLs. There we go. So Iron Mako is going to be our main tamer, obviously, because we are probably going to play some Blast Mode. I still like running one of this Beelzemon, just because he's still a pretty good card to use. Then we're going to go 2 of him, and then where's the Blast Mode? Here's the Blast Mode. Probably like 2 or 3 Blast Modes, just because Blast Mode can still be absolutely insane when milled. I don't necessarily think we need the Balmon. You could run the Balmon if you really wanted to, But we do sometimes just want to try to evolve a little bit more traditionally. So as far as the rest of the deck, we're just going to play mill-based cards. So we're going to play some Soulmons. We're going to play Doberman. Because, like, we're not trying to go hardcore all the way up the stack. And then we're going to play Wizardmon. Oh, that's the wrong promo, Wizardmon. Ha! Alright. And then we're going to play Wizardmon. Then we're going to have some more cards that mill us. So we're going to have some Mist Memory Boost. We're going to play Jackraid because Jackraid in Beelzemon is pretty good when he's able to Turbo Mill. Then we have Deathslinger. Deathslinger is absolutely insane. So I kind of like where this is heading. We need some ultimates because we do want to try to go up the chain. So I think as far as purple ultimates for this style of deck, I do really like the ultimate. The Skull Satamon, just because we don't have a whole lot of ways to be able to trash while digivolving, and this is one of the few ways that we do. And then we could also use it to recycle our Beelzemon. And then on top of that, we also have probably one of the best purple megas in the game, which is going to be the Black War Greymon. So the idea behind this card is we're going to Digiburst our stack away, and then we're going to then be able to play like an Impmon, and then from that Impmon, we're going to be able to do different things depending on where the current state of our trash is and what our stack is looking like, and do a whole bunch of other things. The multi-attack potential is actually pretty insane, especially with the Beelzemon, because this ability is not once per turn, so you could use it to some very devastating degree. And we don't really need to go heavy on the level 5s because we're also going to be warping. So setting up the warp also is pretty nice. So I'd probably need to play more rookies. So the purple rookies, like I said, are kind of just free slots. You could play more Impmons if you really wanted to, or you could play some Floodgates. So depending on where you expect the meta to be, I think some Floodgates is probably going to be more the recommended direction. So we could probably cut like maybe a Jackraid or something, or an Iron Mako Tamer, because we only need to see like one of this card. Unfortunately, we don't have any way to set it up for free. What's the stats looking like? So 12 rookies as of right now. So that's probably correct. So I could probably cut a level 4 down. There we go. And then obviously the egg right now, Pagumon is probably the best egg for this deck, just because the on delete milling is definitely nice. So as far as Beelzemon, this is kind of just like a pretty generic but pretty solid Beelzemon list. So this is definitely looking to be one of the more powerful purple decks, especially when you get really lucky with your mills. So this gives us a pretty good core and foundation for what Yellow Hybrids is doing. So we'll go import. Stats and full cards. And 50%. So we are going to have to take out the cards that do not belong. So we're going to take out Susano, we're going to take out Death X, we're going to take out Core. So as far as what Yellow Hybrids is looking like, so we didn't really have to take out that many cards. The Tamers, these still seem like some really solid Tamers. I don't necessarily know if Jet Sylphie is going to be, or not Jet Sylphie, if Shaco is going to be the best direction for this deck to go. Just because the format is going to be a little bit slower. We know that Bloom is probably going to be the best deck, so we could probably take out Shaco, and we could probably take out the Ofani, and we could think about running some of the Rise stuff that we were running before. Just because we want the efficiency on the tempo, and this actually gives us some damage to be able to pressure the opponent, and then it also gives us access to Rise Greymon X Antibody to be able to flood the field with our Tamers, but I still think Venusmon is like easily the best Mega that Yellow has to work with, so that's going to stay in the deck. I really don't like how they had these split up, so I'm just going to fix that, and there. Eggs are pretty simple. The level 3s are pretty simple. Pillowmon is actually going to be pretty clutch in this type of a format, just because there's a lot of effects that could play other Digimon by effects, and that's namely against Bloomlord. So if Bloomlord literally doesn't have an out to this card, then they could just easily get wrecked by it. But from this type of a position, we still have 4 card slots left, so we're probably going to want a supporting Mega, even though we do have a Pseudo Mega, so we could actually go down on the Rise if we really wanted to. I'll just keep it at 4 Rise, just because it allows us to use this a little bit cleaner, and then we could just, the option spread's already pretty good. Yeah, the option spread looks fine to me. You have recovery, you have removal, so we could probably go up on a removal or like change the Wyvern's Breath for Lone K. So if we wanted to, we could think about running the Shine Greymon. Just because like the control that he offers for having a wide field of Tamers, and if Black War is the only card with Tamer Hate and removal, like we still want and need the ability to be able to deal with wide fields. And I think Shine Greymon comes in clutch for that. And then we get 2 extra cards, which we could dump into some rookies. So probably another Floodgate. We have Cutemon as well as another Floodgate that we could run. I don't necessarily know if we need this many Floodgates per se. But we could, like, let's just say go down on a Rise, and then that kind of fills things out nicely a bit. At least a little bit cleaner. So, like, this is the problem with running too many Megas, because I feel like we are forced to use our Megas, and we need to have clear and defined ways to be able to climb, and if we don't see our ultimates, then our Megas basically become bricks. So maybe, like, 1 Shine, or, like I said, the Shine could basically be anything that you feel like you want to use. So I like the Shine just for the control, so we'll just keep it in, even though we already have some pretty decent control. It just means we don't need to focus hardcore on the control options. So I kind of like where this is at as far as what a possible yellow hybrids list could look like going into Ultimate Cup. Obviously, you're going to want to play test and see what you like, but I do like where this is currently at. Stats. Okay, so Chaos Deck got limited to 1. So we're first going to have to start with that, and then we're going to have to take out everything that says not yellow. So not yellow, not yellow, not yellow, not yellow. There. So, oh, and this. So this is kind of where we're looking. So we have a lot of room to be able to do some various different things. So we're probably going to want to up the Ofani and up the Maycrack, just because like Ofani on top of Maycrack is how we actually get value off of, like full value off of Ofanimon. Then we're still running like the good recovery, some good removal, so we're probably going to want to put in at least 3 Lone K, just because these are basically acting like the other copies of Chaos Degradation. And then as far as Tamers go, we're going to be forced to run the Mirai, just because we want to be able to utilize our Tamer at virtually all times. So the memory game off of her actually isn't too bad either. So we only need to see 1, so we probably could get away with 3. How many purple Tamers is a deck like this usually running? So they're usually running 1, 2, 3, 7. So how many Tamers total is in the base? So the base build has 9 Tamers. So right now we have 5 Tamers. So we probably would want to go up on the Cody and up on the Kari. We could think about running TKs, like TK and Kari, just because TK and Kari actually isn't that bad. Because it really forces the opponent to not want to attack us. So we could run like 2 TK and Karis. Plus the extra removal this card adds is pretty decent. So I kind of like where the Tamers are at here. How many options? This deck normally runs like 21 options. Jeez. So let's go up on the Salamon X Antibody because I really like that card. And then we could also go up on the Salamon, still keep the Cutemon, and unfortunately we're probably not going to want to use Pillowmon, just because Pillowmon could ruin our, a lot of value off of our Flame Hell Scythe and our Ophanimon as well. Because Ophanimon is mostly just going to bring back probably like a Floodgate or Salamon, just to be able to have something. So I do like the techiness of these, and because they're both yellow, we could still run them. They're multicolor for Cody, which makes Cody better. So I do like the aggressiveness that these add to the deck. As far as the removals that we're losing, what are we actually losing? So we're losing an Avenged Kidmon, which allows us to recycle our cards. We don't have a replacement for that. Then the other cards that we're losing is Fly Bullet for some actual more hard removal. So we could just play more actual hard removal. So we could play more Wyvern's Breath if we really wanted to. Or we could play more Lone K. Then we are missing the board wipe in the form of Schwartz Lizart. But we actually do have a pseudo replacement. It's not very good, but it's still something. So we do have Holy Sunshine. This isn't too bad, just because we also, instead of Sakuyamon, we could think about playing Ophanimon, which this card would synergize with. Even though this card's ordinarily pretty expensive, I think it's still just a pretty decent card at being able to deal with wide fields. Because this is only minus 3,000, which isn't really going to deal a whole lot. And the annoying part is this is until the end of the opponent's turn. So it persists through our turn, and it persists through the opponent's turn. So that could be pretty annoying. If we wanted to, just for some cheap removal, just to try to punish the opponent, I don't necessarily hate using Megalo Spark. But we'll see how the rest of the deck shapes up before thinking about wanting to add that in. Because I do think that Venus is still one of the best yellow level 6s in the game. So not running her is borderline a crime. So the only level 7 we actually have access to is Ordainimon, which we could theoretically line up, especially if we want to try to play Regulamon. I don't exactly know if I really want to, but I could like do like a tech 1-in-1, just because we have the space for it. But again, I'm not entirely sure if like playing Regulamon is actually correct. I don't think it is, just to get the Ordaini off. But it's definitely cute to think about. So then we have like one card slot left that we could just use for whatever we feel like. I really like where a lot of our cards are at. I could theoretically, instead of running this type of a package, which might be asking a little bit too much out of security control, I could just run extra level 4s just because they're pretty decent level 4 Digimon. And then with the one extra card, I could still run the level 7. I don't think I necessarily need it because I only get the good benefits off of the DNA. So when I would DNA, yeah, so I only get the when digivolving if I DNA. But the on delete is still kind of cute, but I don't have any good ways of using that. So if we wanted to, we could just run literally like any other option. So we could just run like the 2-cost option that just decreases the opponent's security attack, just to play a little bit heavier into the security attack, or we could play even just another tamer. So I think maybe I would just run like maybe a 1 of TK, just to be able to search and dig through our security, have that information. But that's kind of what the Salamon is doing already. So it's not bad, but maybe the TK is correct. I don't know. This is the slot where like you could kind of just do whatever you feel like, because it could be a memory boost, like another memory boost for added consistency. but we are pretty option heavy, so there are going to be those chances where this whiffs. So I think maybe like the one of Holy Flame might not be bad. Starter deck Angelmon is another tech option. Yeah. Like there's some really decent other tech options that you could run just to be able to flesh it out. Because Starter deck Angelmon also does have good Venusmon value. So there is that aspect to it as well. So like this card could kind of just be a lot of different things. And you could kind of like fiddle and play around with the deck to get it to be in a state where you're more comfortable with. So if just because we would want to maybe try to use Venusmon, and because we are running more level 4 or level 6s than we normally, maybe the one of Angelmon from the starter deck would be better. Oops. Just because she also does have an on-play effect, basically acting like a fifth and Magna Angemon. So I don't necessarily hate where the direction of this is going. Again, you could probably play around with a couple of things to be able to get it into a spot you're more comfortable with, and something like this probably would need a decent amount of testing and iteration, because we could easily like go down a Holy Sunshine and up on an Angelmon. So there's like a whole bunch of different things that you could do with it, and this is just my interpretation on how I would attempt to be able to go into this style of deck. Because as I already showed you, you could go a little bit more into the DNA and like really try to flesh it out. But I think like for where the format is, Security Control definitely is still not a dead deck. It still has a lot of its good core pieces intact, and it's really just customizing the removal and the Digimon that you want to be using to really bring the deck home. But it still has all of those basic core elements that the deck has been playing with for a very long time. So the Ophani loop really kind of hasn't seen any like actual success in a very long time. But I do think it is still possibly one of the better yellow decks, and that's not saying much. I would still probably take Security Control over Ophani loop, and I would also still rather take yellow hybrids over Ophani loop. But we still have the ability to at least attempt to play the Ophani loop. All right, so let's level sort this. So this gives us a lot more to work with in terms of how we could adapt to the deck. So we're definitely taking out Death X because we can't run it. We're taking out all of the purple and reducing Chaos Deg to 1. So this already gives us a lot to work with. Like I said, I do really like the Gatomon into Angelmon, into Angelmon X, into Ophani. I think like that's still really strong. And I do like the Salamons. So we do have to cut the Searcher Salamon, unfortunately, which we could just replace with a different Salamon. So we do have some other Salamons that we could run. So we do have more recovery. We even have the Draw Salamon, but I don't necessarily like this card because this card's asking us to be aggressive way earlier on, which I don't think that the deck is trying to be. So for all intents and purposes, let's just max out on the recovery and max out on Salamon X. And then we could try to find another Salamon. So the only other Salamons we have is the 2-drop and the DNA. So we could theoretically try to line up the DNA, but I don't necessarily think trying to run Ordani in this style of deck would be super worthwhile. So let's just go with a nice core Salamon that's just not really doing anything, but just being a good like choke tool. So that way we could try to have like an extra body on our field to be able to utilize Starmons with, because I think Starmons is still just a really good value card. The level 4s are kind of okay. They were just running... I don't know how prevalent OTK is going to be where Sakuyamon matters. So anytime you see kind of Sakuyamon, I'm just going to fill it in with Venus, because Venus is just doing the same thing but better. Basically. So the only sad thing is Venus is not a angel. But we're not really trying to go for angel synergies outside of literally this Gatomon. I don't know how good this Gatomon is per se, just because like it's a blocker, but we do need to have Ophanimon out on the field in order to make this card even relevant. And then as far as the eggs, definitely make this swap, just because the draw for having lower security is usually like easier than relying on the draw from having a higher security. Like, if we were trying to be more aggressive early on and be low to the ground aggro, I would definitely probably say Cupimon. But I think Upamon is just more of a generically better egg. Then as far as some of the other cards that we took out, because I definitely think this deck wants to be played more yellow base. You could obviously play this deck in a purple base, but compared to some of the other purple decks, I don't necessarily know if it's really worthwhile. Like the big core strength is the fact that we do just have like more stall tactics to be able to use our cards more efficiently. Just because this could help us recover and apply security attack, which plays into Venusmon, and then this already on play plays with our Flame Hellscythe, which means our Flame Hellscythe gets better. So I think we do still have to kind of run the Mirai Tamer, or just so we could have easier access at our options. So we probably only need like maybe 2 copies of it. Having 3 isn't terrible. But the second part of the ability is almost never going to matter, and we're just using it to basically just gain 1 memory, which TK, or not TK, Cody is basically doing the exact same thing. So we lost some options, so we could just fill that in with whatever options that we feel like. So for the sake of the example, I'm just going to go 2 Lone Ks, just because the removal type that we're going for off of Lone K is almost doing the same thing as Chaos Dag. The minus 12K actually does matter depending on the matchup, because sometimes they can hit over specific number counts, which is going to be over the 12K. And we don't really have anything else to add it during the opponent's turn, so this easily could just be Wyvern's Breath if you really wanted to, but just the potential of just having this basically be Chaos Dag is just still good. And that alternate removal type is what we're actually looking for. And then outside of that, we have 2 cards left. So one of them was obviously a Death X, which we're no longer running. So that Death X could kind of be whatever we want. How many rookies? We were running 12, so we're running 1 extra rookie, which I think is fine, just because we want to be better on our tempo. And then 1 Calling from the Darkness. So basically we have 2 utility slots, so we could just run like some memory boosts just to try to help the deck's overall consistency. There we go. So we could just put 2 yellow memory boosts. I actually kind of like yellow memory boost in this style, just because it allows us to be able to hard play our Digimon, especially if we have a memory fixer on our field, a little bit more cleanly, so we could actually use like the hard play rush on this to basically be like a Bushi for turn, or we could use a card like this to hard play it for 6. It just allows us to be able to do more with the deck, so I really do like the added efficiency that a yellow memory boost does add. So I like where this currently is in terms of like a yellow-based Ophanimon. And if you really wanted to convert the deck to purple, basically you just run purple removal, purple memory boost, purple memory fixing tamers, and then just a purple low end. And that's kind of all you realistically need to do in order to shift and translate the deck to being purple. And then obviously with the level 5s, you would run Lady Devimons, just because they do need to be Fallen Angels. You'd have some like creative liberties on what Fallen Angels that you run, just because purple does have more than just Lady Devi for its Fallen Angels. So if you wanted to, you could think about even running like a Neo Devi, because Neo Devi still works with Gatomon, because Gatomon is just caring about Fallen Angel as far as purple level 5s go. If you really wanted to, you also have the new Lady Devimon, which isn't bad, and it does synergize with Mirai. So there's that. And it gives your other cards potentially retaliation. You have this Lady Devimon, which helps fill up your trash, and then you don't really have a way of playing Digimon by card effects. You could play an option that kind of does that. So the Inheritable isn't super great off of this Lady Devimon, but I think this is definitely the best Lady Devimon. Lady Devimon by far. So, like, there's still some things that you could do. This is okay. This isn't terrible, but it's not amazing either. Um, so, like I said, there's still some stuff that you could do to translate the deck to being purple if you really wanted to and not really lose too much. But I think, like, yellow just doesn't have that great of decks. And for the sake of the example, this is just a good yellow core or foundation for this style of deck. So green is going to be relatively quick just because we haven't really seen a whole lot of like changes to green. Okay, so this is the Bloomlord deck. Like I said before, it really doesn't need any changing. I think Bloomlord is still just absolutely insane. If you really wanted to, you could try to squeeze in another Mimi. You could reduce the amount of green memory boosts to try to fit that in if you really wanted to. And then Samdasanti you could just swap out in order to play something like the big green removal card from BT10. I'm already forgetting its name. Grandisol. So you could try to squeeze in Grandisol as one of the few options instead of Samdasanti. That's kind of like a meta call. So if you think there's going to be like less protection for what you're doing, then swapping out Samdasanti for Grandisol is probably okay. But yeah, realistically, Bloomlord is completely untouched, and that's why it's one of the better decks going into the Ultimate Cup format, is because you didn't need to change anything. So as far as what we are doing here, it is all the same. So you take out the X antibody option, you reduce Grand Kawagamon promo to 1. You could still run the Refleximon if you wanted to as that tech card. You don't have to. In this example, I probably wouldn't, just because we do have another Grand Kawagamon we actually could use. Gran. So as far as the other best Grand Kawagamon, this does nothing for the deck. So we're probably not going to use it. This currently isn't out yet. Otherwise, I would probably consider using that. So we're just defaulting to the starter deck from the Imperial starter deck, Grand Kawagamon. So we're just going to throw in this card instead. You could run them at 3, you could run them at 4. It really doesn't matter. I guess for this example, I'll just go 4, 1, 3. So even though he's not like really doing a lot, he's still a Grand Kawagamon, and at worst, he's going to be giving our Grandis an extra 4,000 boost when we use him to go into our Grandis, which is not bad at all. And then we have 3 card slots to do whatever we want with, so it's kind of just like maybe more options or more Digimon, so it's kind of just whatever you feel like. More rookies is probably better, so we could literally just run more floodgates. Boom, done, easy. Or if you wanted to, you could cut the Mimi down, and we could even run an extra level 4. So what extra level 4 would we probably run? I really like the Sneemon. So I could probably go down on the blocker Kabu, and then I could go up on the Sneemon. Snymon. So the security Snymon's actually not that bad of a card, just because it's acting like a good security threat as well, that the opponent probably isn't expecting, on top of the fact that it could also just help you aggress when you need to. It's just a decent card. So I kind of think like this is a pretty solid core for Grandis going into the event. And it is more control orientated, and that's kind of the goal of like this limitation. Isn't to just hardcore Unga Bunga, but that's where this card kind of just is attempting to still let you Unga Bunga anyway, just because you could still attack into the opponent's Digimon with security attack +1 with all of your suspending effects. Like it's making up for a lot of the shortcomings that this is offering, while still being a usable card when you don't have Grandis. So I like where this is at in terms of a Grand Kawagamon deck, if you're still wanting to run it for the Ultimate Cup. And then as far as the Dark Horse, I have to go to, is going to be Green Hybrids. I don't necessarily think green hybrids is that bad for this type of event. So as far as cards we're going to have to get rid of, we're going to have to get rid of Calamon, and we're going to have to get rid of Pokemon. So those are the only real cards we have to get rid of. Outside of that, the majority of the deck seems to be, for the most part, intact. We probably don't need the Argamon anymore. So if we wanted to, so we could run kind of just any Ancient we're allowed to run, which I think maybe still just running like maybe a Tech 1 of Troy isn't bad, just because it can help stop multi-attack shenanigans. I do like Shivamon in this type of format, just because we do want to try to at least stop the opponent from utilizing their options. This is one of the few cards that does that. We could probably go up on a memory boost. The ultimates really don't change, like, at all. Neither do the champions, or the champion lineup. So it's really just like what other rookies and other cards we want to run. So as far as eggs go, we probably don't need BBmon. BBmon's okay, just because if we're expecting to have one Digimon on the field, that's fine. So what other good eggs would we possibly want to consider running? So probably Tanamon. Yeah. I don't know if you'd make Tanamon the main egg and have Gummymon be the sub egg, but I think Tanamon is still just a pretty good egg. So we kind of just need a Tamer Digger, so I think we just play Green's best Tamer Digger, which is Agumon, ironically enough. Just because this Agumon also gives our Digimon some DP boost. So we're probably going to run like at least 2 or 3 of this. How many rookies? So they're running 11 with 2 extras. So they're running 13. So we're at 10. So we could probably just finish the bunny package. And just run some Angoramon. So I would probably swap this to 3 and 2. Yeah, that's probably correct. So as far as, and then we have 1 extra slot. So what are we missing? So 6, 6, 13, 13. So I'm missing a Tamer? Or an option. Oh, I'm missing the Samdesantes again. So, do I really think in this style of deck Samdesanti is, like, actually good? Maybe. Maybe it is. Because it helps suspend the opponent's Digimon down. So maybe this should be something else instead. So let's look at Green Tamers. Because maybe we just have enough good Green Tamers where we don't necessarily need that anymore. And then there is an argument to try to run Tyrannomons. I'm not a huge fan of the Kabuterimon as is, but I get the goal is like, if we don't have the line, then we're just going to try to tempo evolve. And the blocker Kabuterimon and Cherrymon aren't bad just because they do have the ability to try to stop some aggression. So I don't hate them. And then we didn't get any new Terriermons yet. So the question is this card. Like, do we need this card? What is this card doing? So what Green Tamers came out that we actually would want to use? So we have Willis, probably not, because even though we are playing some Terriermons and some Rapidmons, it's not worthwhile. We do have TK and Izzy, which actually isn't bad, just because if we have a level 5, then we're by default gaining a memory, which I guess if we're winning, that's the only time we're actually gaining the memory, and I guess the suspension isn't necessarily that great either. Just because we have to Digivolve to give them the debuff, which isn't terrible. Like, this isn't bad. We have Ruli, which is a memory fixing tamer, which we don't really need. And then this just helps suspend the opponent's Digimon down. That's worse than Henry. So maybe it is Taiga. Like, maybe Taiga is just the better card. Because when our green level 5 Digivolves, then we get to reduce the Digivolution cost. So the deck is kind of already wanting to reduce the Digivolution cost as is. Oh wait, does Taiga synergize with Rhino? From your hand for a memory cost of 3. So the big question is, does Taiga stack with Rhino? If the answer is yes, and we actually get to evolve 4-2 instead into our higher level Digimon, then that's absolutely busted. If it doesn't stack with our Rhino, then it's kind of bad. But it's the only other new tamer that came out. But we're not using the secondary effect off of this card anyway, and sometimes the memory gain just isn't going to happen, which I guess is effectively the same. So if you wanted to, you could swap Izzy and Mimi for Izzy and TK or Taiga. This is probably where playtesting actually would come in handy to kind of tell you what is the better tamer, but we do have some other good stuff. I think Taiga, just having that plus 1,000 is probably a better tamer overall. Because, like, I'm almost thinking maybe Cherrymon instead of Cherrymon could be Pangeamon, just to be able to help set up our tamers. We don't care about any other effects off of the card. We just care about the when Digivolving play a tamer for free, which is pretty good. I would run Mamemon, but unfortunately Mamemon is black, so we can't run it. Otherwise, we don't really have a way to be able to put our tamers out effectively. Like, we could run a Tyrannomon, but I don't think that's good. I don't. So Cherrymon could be, if we really wanted to, Pangeamon. It's just the option space is a little on the tight side. So if we really wanted to, we could cut a rookie in order to run more option space. So we could just get rid of the bunny package completely. Considering like Angoramon's only just helping with card draw. So if we really wanted to, we could just go down, up, and then up. And then that might make things run a little bit smoother. But yeah, so I think like green hybrids, just because like if your tamers are able to stick, hybrids are still very strong decks. Yeah, and then 2-cost Izzy is always nice in this deck as well. So there's still a lot of like tamer space and deck space to be able to like try to change things up, customize things, and make it work. So maybe just for the sake of the example, getting rid of Cherrymon just for Pangeamon might be pretty fun and interesting, just to be able to help set up your tamers, which is something green hasn't really had before. Even though we don't have the ability to play any Digimon by any card effects, actually we do. Hold up. We do. Off of our Ancients, these play level 4s. So if we have I guess this is just a win more situation, but if we have like a Pangeamon with an Ancient on the field, and then our other Ancient dies, it plays a level 4 one of our hybrids for free, and then I guess it gets Rush. So there is that like small level of synergy, but I don't think it's anything to write home about. And by that point, you should already be winning the game if you have 2 level 6s out. So what do we got next? Red. Oh boy, red. And stats. All right. So as far as what we're actually losing in the deck, the biggest loss is Majiramon. So I'm actually going to break this down a little bit slower and just try to find functional replacements for the cards that we're losing. So as far as a functional replacement for Tyrannomon, so it's just giving us a generic plus 2000 DP boost. We have plenty of those in red. So let's go with red. And then let's go plus 2000. So I already know of one. It's going to be the Greymon. So literally, it just is doing the exact same thing. It is the best functional replacement, just because it's a dinosaur. If we really wanted to, we could also up the starter deck Greymons. So as far as Cordramon, because we don't really have a good functional replacement for the card draw, we're just going to try to increase the amount of times we're seeing the abilities. So we're probably going to increase the Greymons, and then since we don't really have anything else, we could just dump it into a security Digimon, because it was a security Digimon. So just getting a Digimon on the field to be aggressive with is probably just good enough. Then everything else is still kind of good. So the 2 things that we're replacing is Jazza Richmon. So security tech +1 in red. So it looks like we don't actually have another functional replacement. He is a Dragonkin. But unfortunately, we don't have Blitz, so we can't gain Security Tech +1. So I think we just round out the Security Tech Plus that we do have access to. So we could take him out and then just increase these two just to have a higher likelihood of being able to see them. And now the only like actual functional replacement is Majiramon. So I don't have a good replacement for Majiramon. So instead, we could just take a look at like red ultimates and see what inheritables we could use that would be pretty good for the deck. So I know we could think about utilizing his built-in one. So let's just start off with 3 of the built-in one and see if there's anything better than this card. I think that's just a better mindset to put us in. If we were running Sistermons, theoretically, we could actually use this card. Because it is a Dragonkin. It's so cheeky and it's only a one of. I wouldn't recommend it, but that it theoretically is a possibility. Which only goes to the like why they decided to limit this card. Yeah, so we could actually use this instead. To be able to gain a memory, which basically makes Digicrossing cheaper as long as we deleted a Digimon. So this is another viable option as well. So let me reduce you. So as far as our viable replacements for Majiramon, we either could go with more card draw for when we attack, which isn't bad because that's what the deck is trying to do anyway, is just draw into our Dorbikmon. And then the other thing that we could do is Lavogaranimon to basically make playing our Dorbikmon when we get to that state a little bit cheaper. So considering Majiramon wasn't helping us draw cards, Cordramon was, so I'm more inclined to run the Volcano than the memory gain, but they're both very viable. So we actually could, theoretically, in a world, go down 2 of these, and then just run some of this, and then just throw in whatever other card we feel like is good and necessary for the deck to make it function. So maybe we could just run, like, maybe another red memory boost, or just whatever extra one that we want. So I don't hate this. I really don't. So let's look at the last known best performing Gallantmon list, and let's see if there's any changes that we actually need to make. The fact that Gallantmon was able to win is still pretty good. I still like the deck, and I believe that the deck has the capability to win. It's a better punish deck than it seems, and it could still make some very scary and very powerful plays. So if we're done with this, let's just clear the field and import the next deck. All right, level sort. So this is the last known best performing Gallantmon list, and this is what it looks like. So the majority of it we really don't need to change. It is literally just taking out 2 copies of X Antibody and 1 copy of Omnimon X. So if we're really looking to find the replacement for Omnimon X Antibody, well, boom, easy. It's just play another Crimson, which isn't that bad. We literally have nothing to change as far as these, so we have 2 option slots to kind of get creative and do whatever we feel like we need to. Or we could just use this time to kind of round out the ratios. So I think rounding out these ratios might be more beneficial. So the level 4s kind of seem like it's a little on the low side, so I probably would want to fix that. So adding in at least 1 or 2 more level 4s would be good. So probably Growlmon. Is this actually a good Growlmon? I don't really like this Growlmon, so let's go ahead and get rid of him. And then let's just play this. And then we could probably just play 1 more Agumon just to try to see the higher likelihood of getting a Tamer. And then we could even just play 1 more Tamer if we really wanted to. Or we could play another option. So we don't actually need to run the extra Crimson if we don't need to, just to try to help round out things a little bit better, just because Gallant X is still just an absolutely insane card. So we have the red-purple ones that we could run. So when you may delete one of your other Digimon to have this Digimon gain security attack +1, like that's not a bad one of. It still Digivolves for 2 on top of a Growlmon. The only not Growlmon we're playing is Solarmon. which is only a 2 of, so the majority of our cards are still highly usable. If you really wanted to get rid of the Solarmon, just to round out your Guilmon ratios to make using a card like the Growlmon better, then you could. So I kind of like where this is. I don't necessarily think the other Growlmon is that great. Like, not that one. This one's fantastic. This is easily the best Growlmon. But it is the EX one. Where'd the EX one go? Here we go. So when we Digivolve, we get to delete a Digimon with 2,000 DP or less, and then if we have a Red Tamer, we get to delete one with 4,000 DP or less. I don't necessarily think that matters. And then the recursive removal on his ability also kind of just seems redundant when we have this that basically is doing the same inheritable. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of that Growlmon. I get it, it's for more control, and the likelihood of us having an extra body to just sacrifice to this Growlmon is less likely. But I do like his when Digivolving ability a little bit better, just because it's the same level of reach for the most part. On top of the fact that it also has the potential to trash the opponent's deck, which could matter, and it does help set up our Gallantmon from BT2 better and our Crimson mode. So I don't necessarily know if this is per se the best Gallantmon, but it's definitely a good Gallantmon, and it's what the last known top 16 Gallantmon had used. So that's why I'm going to be using it, but just keep in mind, you have the freedom to be able to customize your Gallantmons based on what you feel like you want to be running, because you could use this slot to kind of just run whatever other Gallantmons you want, and there's some really good ones. I'm not super thrilled with this card either, but the increasing the range isn't terrible, because this doesn't have an inheritable ability, but its native ability is just so much better at being able to set up what we need to set up. And we're still 2 cards missing, so like I said, we could just round out a Tamer and an option. So probably play like maybe one more red memory boost, even though out of security it doesn't really do anything, but it does allow us to be able to like move hyper quickly, and it makes our deck a little bit more consistent, which I'm all for. And then we have one more card, so maybe like one more of this, and that's probably okay. Or we could just round out our options. I don't know if Crimson Blaze is actually that good. It has its matchups where it's absolutely insane, which is why I think running it at 1 is fine. Let's look at other red options. So what other red options do... Oh, we could run Fireball for the draw 2. We could... we're burning more than... at least in this style, we're burning more, so maybe Delicate Plant isn't that great. I think maybe just running the extra Mem Boost is probably better, just to help with the consistency. So this is probably okay. In terms of like running a Gallantmon for Ultimate Cup, I think this is okay. Alright, now Greymon, red base. So this is going to be one of the more interesting ones, just because the red base still has a lot for us to do. Because we could play either Black War, or we could play War Gray. So, as far as the cards that we are replacing for red base, so obviously we cannot run Black Greymon, because he is black. So we're taking him out, and we're going to be playing Security Tech plus Greymon instead. So Security Tech plus Greymon. 1, 2, 3. All right. So that's an easy enough of a swap. I still like running... I still personally like running the DP Boost Egg, but for the sake of the example, I'll just keep both. And then, so we're good with our rookies. Our rookies were already set in stone. We're good with our, essentially our champions. If you really wanted to, you could swap out this Greymon X antibody for the old one. So I think if you're trying to go into more of a War Gray style, like just pure red War Gray, I think that's the smarter move, just because you're not able to use the protection of this card at all. And that kind of sucks. But if you're trying to go for more Black War, then running the Greymon just makes more sense. So for now, I'll just keep them in, even though we are going to have to take out the X antibody option. So I'll put one more Hades Force in just by default. We're going to have to take out the Yuyas, and we're going to have to take out the Cool Boys. So as far as Tamers go, so we could think about running Hero if we want more DP. But I think most people will just end up playing Tai. Like, we could also consider Marcus just to gain a memory, and that's not terrible. It really isn't. I think with, again, the X antibody option, it's a little bit better because it makes Digivolving mid-attack easier. So I think just for the sake of the example, Tai is probably just going to be the best memory-fixing tamer that we have. And I think that might be the only tamer we need. Just because if we look at the other red tamers, the rest of them really aren't doing a whole lot. At least not for the deck specifically. Like, obviously we would want Nokia as a replacement to Cool Boy, but we can't do that. Sora is just bad. We could actually run Tai. Like a 2 of Tai, just for our Cool Boy replacement. So if this is our Yu-Gi-Oh replacement, this could be our Cool Boy replacement. Because I did a Garurumon deck where that kind of was the case, which I'll redo here, just so you could kind of see. And then obviously we can't run Omnimon X. And then we can't run the promo Black War Greymon if you're running Black War Greymon, so we're going to have to go with the BT11, which is the one that a lot of people were running anyway to begin with. So if you're running like Black War, this is kind of the direction. So we don't have a replacement for the X antibody option per se. I know a lot of people go 2s on the Gaiomon, but I do love Gaiomon that much. I think especially in the mirror, he is just that important of a card. Even just Gaiomon without any of these as like acting as a base is still good. So I'm okay going heavier into here because I probably would, with the extra deck space, want to run the metal promo. So I would consider running the Alteris promo, just because it gives me an extra level 5. It gives me the ability. I could probably, because the Digivolve might be a little bit less prevalent, go down on one and run a second. So something like this doesn't seem like too terrible of an option because we're less focused about the X antibodies. And this still helps us reduce the evolution cost of our cards. So it makes our cards pretty decent in terms of tempo to Digivolve into. So, like, let's just say we have Taikimiya sitting on our field. We're put to 3. If we have the other Taikimiya sitting on our field, then we raise out, go to 4, Digivolve for 2 into a Metal Greymon. It doesn't matter which one because they both will Evo for 2. And then we could Evo for like 3, or put the opponent to 3 and Evo into Gaio and Blitz. Like, it's not bad. And then we have, 2 extra card slots? So because we're running this, we could technically tech in, like, maybe 1 Bond. I don't think Bond is, like, needed, but we could anyway, just because it's one of the few red level 7s that we're working with. So if we're looking at just red level 7s, we could easily just run Crimson mode. We won't be able to use the card very effectively, but we could run the card. We could run the Bond because we're already playing lots of Agumons. We only have 8 Agumons to actually use with the Bond, and we're not playing the Bond Agumon, which does kind of suck a little bit. So it might not be the best play, but it's still a play. If you're just looking for something, Ragnar Lordmon's okay. But I don't necessarily think the deck needs a level 7. But if you were, I would probably say maybe like 1 bond just to be cute and cheeky. People really wouldn't expect it. And it could still like basically auto win you games at times. So it's not a bad card. If you wanted to run 2 of it just to replace the Omnimons, by all means do so. But the bond only works in the red package, which is why I think the red package is a little bit stronger because of the Tai Kamiya to, at worst, still just gain us the memory and draw us a card when we raise out. So that way we have more memory to be able to work with to make our cards more effective. So we have 2 extra card slots to kind of do whatever we want with. So I think more options would probably be better, just because we're kind of lacking in the option department. We don't necessarily need any options, so we could think about fleshing out our ratios a little bit more. So let's go with red and options. So as far as what we're missing, we theoretically could just run more red memory boost if we really wanted more consistency. If we wanted more control, we could try to do Hades Force, but Hades Force really works only off of our megas and then selects level 5 and 4s. So I don't necessarily think we... So in terms of other tech and utility cards, I'm not seeing... A lot of red is just delete stuff. So I'm not like hardcore seeing anything super like fancy or sticking out. So maybe it is just running like 1 more red memory boost or just running an extra rookie. So let's look at our rookies actually. So we could theoretically run the Tamer Digger one as our off rookie. What other Agumons do we have? Agumon. Because we also could just run a Floodgate too. So we do have the Tamer Digger Agu, so that's not a bad one either. So I think maybe the Tamer Digger one might be better as like our off rookie, or we could just run 14 rookies, but I think with our ratios, that's probably wrong. So we could go there. And then maybe just another mem boost, and I think that's kind of good. So as far as a red-based Greymon deck, this is kind of where I'm leaning. And then obviously if you are playing more into War Greymon, because this is obviously playing more into Black War Greymon. So if we're leaning more into War Greymon, then we're going to be utilizing some slightly different tools. So obviously we would take out the Black Wars and the whole Black War package. I still really do like the Metal Greymon, but there's an argument to get rid of the Metal Greymon for the Piercer Metal Greymon, and then get rid of the Metal Greymon X Antibody for the old Metal Greymon X Antibody. For the sake of the example, I'm probably just going to leave it. We could probably change Hades Force to Gaia Force or Gaia Force 0. It really doesn't matter. Because Gaia Force 0 at least still lets us attack. We just won't get the cost reduction. Delete one of with 13,000 DP or less. Delete. So, since we don't get the cost reduction, I'm just going to throw in Gaia Force. And then the War Greymons. War Greymon. So as far as War Greymons in red. So we're obviously going to run like 3 copies of War Greymon X Antibody. And then we could probably just split 2 on the Blitz and 2 on the security attack. Just to be able to keep that same like kind of mentality on being able to punish the opponent using Blitz and the Metal Greymon. So like if you're using the Greymon cards, like War Greymon, then this is pretty decent. You won't naturally have the DP, which is why like swapping this Metal Greymon to the BT11 is probably better. Yes, you have less protection, but at the same time, you do have the safety on having a better evolution. And then if you really wanted to, like I said, you could swap this out for the BT9 one. And even though the deck is going to move a tiny bit slower because of that, you do have a better inheritable that you actually could use. But yeah, for the most part, that's kind of just how you would build both War Greymon and Black War Greymon in red base. So we're done with red, and now blue. So at least one or two of these, actually blue should go pretty quickly. Because blue, only one deck really changes. So out of this All Force list, let's see what changes for Ultimate Cup. The answer? We lose Merciful Mode. What do we do instead of adding using Merciful Mode? Well, we could use that one card slot for probably Ice Wall. That's probably the easiest thing we could do. Oops, Ice Wall is 2 words. Boom, done, easy. The deck literally does not change at all. So Blue Flares, the core of it really doesn't change. And you're still mostly using almost the exact same cards. It's just, again, those minor tech differences. So because this has the least amount of changes, this is just the core that I'm going to be going with. Because the deck, it's all mostly here. So as far as the cards that we cannot run, we can't run Greymon, and we can't run the Tamers. So what do we play instead? Well, we play Sora and Joe. So Sora and Joe is the functional replacement for that. And then as far as where the extra rookie go, or the extra champion, boom, done. If you wanted to, I think like maybe you could reduce the Cyber-Germons, because I'm not huge on Cyber-Germon. It does make Cyber Launcher work a little bit better, but Cyber Launcher is just kind of an okay card anyway. So I'm going to be cutting those down. And I'm also going to be cutting the Zeege down, just because Zeege is kind of a brick, because you're not really going to be using him that much, and you're still going to be relying mostly on your Metal Greymons to do all of the work. So I'm just going to put the Zeege into a Cyber, or basically just leave Cyber alone. And then that gives me 4 slots to do whatever I want with, so that's just 4 slots for Floodgates. So 2 Siakomon and 2 Madoki Betamon. Boom, easy. The Siakomon and Madoki Betamon can kind of be like whatever you feel like you want it to be. But yeah, so that's Blue Flare. So we're done with All Force and we're done with Blue Flare. So all that leaves us with is Metal Garurumon. So as far as what we cannot run, we can't run Cool Boy, and we can't run X Antibody. So without Cool Boy and without X Antibody, like I said with the Greymons, we're probably going to want to run Matt. So the blue Matt is a really good replacement to Cool Boy in this type of a format, just because when we raise out our Digimon, we're going to be gaining a memory and drawing a card. So that's the first replacement. There really isn't a replacement to X Antibody, which is pretty unfortunate. So the replacement to the level 7s is going to be the blue level 7 that we do have access to. So Digimon blue level 7, go. So we do have access to the Bond. So Bond is actually not that bad in this deck, just because we do have some like really cute and cheeky plays that we can make because of how this card works and if we're able to draw enough cards in our hand. So the other thing is Where Gurumon X Antibody is banned for the event. So we cannot run Metal Gurumon X Antibody, but that's okay because we have a serviceable replacement in the form of Where Gurumon Sagittarius mode. And not just any Where Gurumon Sagittarius mode, the promo one. So if you really wanted to, you could take the consistency hit and run the old one, just because it evolves for 1 and then it'll gain jamming. So you could do jamming security attack +1, but that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to be safe. So to be safe, we're going to be running the Sagittarius promo. Where the heck? Oh. There we go. So as the replacement for Weregurumon, we're going to be running Sagittarius, which is not terrible, just because now that we're not running Cool Boy, we don't necessarily need to worry about trying to Evo into our X forms to try to gain as much tempo as possible. All of this is still fine in terms of the low end, in terms of the level 4s, all of that is still fine as well. So we got a couple of extra card slots to play around with. I'm just going to get rid of the Arctic Blizzard because I don't necessarily think we need it anymore. I'm going to increase this just because I want to see the consistency on this a little bit more. Just so I could try to do my ultra big Wombo combo. And I'm also going to be increasing my Davis for the exact same reason. Just because I want to try to utilize my big Wombo combo. So the big combo of the deck now is going to be, obviously with Davis, start at 3, then have Weregurumon in Raising, so move that out. Digivolve for 0 into our promo, so that way we could get that extra cycle and then try to do some stuff. Get the extra protection. So we're obviously going to try to do that whole risky one swing unsuspend. Digivolve into Sagittarius mode. We're not going to swing with Sagittarius mode because ideally we're going to want to Digivolve into Metal Garurumon. If we have 12 cards in hand, we essentially Digivolve into Metal Garurumon for 1, which is pretty good. And we need this Digimon to be unsuspended, so that way if we're at, let's just say, 3 off of him, raise out 4 because of Matt, we could Digivolve for 1 into Metal Garurumon, and then we could then Digivolve from Metal Garurumon for 3 into Bond of Friendship. So it's like we went from a level 5 to a level 7 and still didn't pass turn, which is absolutely insane to think of because now we could swing twice with Bond of Friendship with Security Tech plus Security Tech plus 1. So that's already 5 security right then and there. So if we dealt any damage previously before through chip or any other means, then that could potentially lead to an OTK. And then if we're able to like use Hammer Spark and then Digivolve into Metal Garurumon, X Antibody, then that actually does lead to an OTK if we Digivolve into Bond. So because of this, we're probably going to want to run more Hammer Sparks or Blazing Memory, or not Blazing, Blue Memory Boosts. We do have 3 card slots to play around with, so I'm going to be running an extra Blue Memory Boost just for the consistency of the setup. And then we have 2 option slots that could be removal, or we could just dump them into Hammer Sparks. It kind of just is whatever you feel like would best support the format. So I do think that maybe dumping them into Hammer Sparks or dumping the rest into more Blue Memory Boosts and Hammer Sparks is probably okay. But just for the sake of example, I do like the safetiness of having blue options to try to deal with the opponent's problems. So we do have a ton of blue options that we could think about running. If we really wanted to, we could still run the one of Arctic Blizzard. Or if we really wanted to, we could run Forbidden Trident. I just don't necessarily think that Arctic Blizzard is that needed anymore. And if we really wanted to, we could run Sorai. We could run Plasma Launcher. We could run Metal Storm. There's a lot of like good blue removal cards that we could run. What does this do? This unsuspends. So return one of the opponent's level 6 or lower. So I think I'm just going to run Metal Storm. Just the Tech 2 Metal Storm, just because the unsuspend actually could matter depending on where I'm at and what I'm playing. So I think like for a basic Garurumon base deck, this isn't terrible. So this is the top 32 European Galactimon list. So let's go ahead and bring out the stats. Oh, it's already up there. Okay. I could probably increase this a little bit just because there's not a whole lot of cards. So as far as the only change to the deck, they are running 1 Death X. So we just cut that out and play a 4th Galacti. Done. Easy. I personally hate these like really bad de-digivolve options, so DG dimensions and laser cannon, I'm not a huge fan of. So just for my own personal sake, I'm just going to cut these out. And we could run so much better options in its place. So we do have some pretty decent options we could tech in. Obviously, we could tech in more removal. Because like there's a lot of really good removal cards that Black has access to. Like Quake Blast Firefather, just a big hard removal card. Same thing with Iron Fisted Onslaught, big hard removal card. And then this is our main de-digivolve. And then if you really wanted to, another cute tech card that we could possibly run is Final Zubagon Punch. I think Final Zubagon Punch is such an underrated card. At least right now. Just because if we're using it on Galactimon, then that could be pretty impactful. Because on Galactimon, he doesn't really have reboot natively. So it allows him to be way more aggressive without losing anything, on top of him still being this big defensive wall. And that's kind of where like Breath of the Gods is coming from, is just adding more protection, because one of his big weaknesses is DP reduction. It is interesting that they're choosing not to play any tamers. I don't necessarily think that's wrong. But if you wanted to, you could also take out like Quake Blast for a tamer. Like just play any black tamer like Izzy or Tai, and I think that's fine. I think Tai for this style of deck might be a little bit better, just because it makes your Digimon more obnoxious to deal with. But you don't really have to, which is the cool part about Galactimon, is because he's so like self-contained. You don't need to change anything about him. Alright, so here is a good core or foundation for Machinedramon. So as far as what we're losing, it is literally down here. So these are so we're obviously losing Death X. Oh no. So Death X could be literally whatever you feel like. So I'll put in Death X later. So as far as what we're actually losing, we're losing a Security Tech Plus, which we have Security Tech Plus here. It wasn't even running the other one. So we're losing a DP boost, which we have a DP boost here. And then we're losing another DP boost, which we could just kind of place whatever. What are the other black cyborgs? So black cyborg. Oops. Did I spell cyborg wrong? Cyborg. There we go. And then ultimate. So as far as black cyborgs that are ultimates that we could run, the only one that we're kind of not running, we're running all of those, is we're not running Volcanomon, which is just more Security Tech Plus. We're not running Gigadramon, which we don't really need anyway, because we don't need to DP... Well, we could DP boost on the opponent's turn, so we could just run the 1 Giga. And then we have that 1 extra card slot, so let me look at the other list and see what they're running. So they are running one of this Giga, so I don't think that's incorrect. So we could consider playing Jazzardmon, just to try to help like flesh things out and round out the ratios in terms of the level 4s. Because how many is he playing? He's playing 7 level 4s. So I think 7 level 4s is correct. I think the way this deck wants to play, the tempo is probably just more efficient. But if you wanted to run Jazzarichmon instead, so like run 2 tanks and 2 Jazzarichmons, that's probably okay. So something like this definitely seems okay. Because otherwise we have that 1 slot that we just basically can do whatever we want with, in terms of like, oh, if we want to run a 3rd one of this, then we can. If we want to run more of this, then we can, or more of this. Like, the last slot is kind of just whatever. Because if we're trying to do like a stack, then I think the Dory is just better. And then what are the other small differences? Oh, he's running less Kazus, but because we're running Cybers, I kind of do just like the Kazu. Kazu just helps with the overall engine of the deck. So where can I squeeze one more of this? I could cut a level 5 out somewhere, but I do like all of the level 5s that we have. So I think this is pretty okay, because most of the time we're trying to actually use this card off of this card. So I think having it be at the later, like the lesser one, I think is fine. But if you want to try to like squeeze in somewhere, like maybe go one less Jazza Richmond and go up on here, then you could. There's still just a lot of like creative liberties that you have on just some small minor tech, but losing out on red isn't that big of a deal. All right, and then oh yes, I need to find Commandramon, because I think Commandramon is still going to be a pretty decent deck for this type of a format, just because of all of the changes. Having just that low to the ground aggro deck still can do work. So let's see if I can. All right. So as far as changes to Commandramon, we really don't need to change a whole lot. So the obvious change is we have to take out Death X. So the obvious fix to Death X is probably just play another Darkdramon, because this is the good Darkdramon and this is the bad Darkdramon. Like, you're not really trying to go up the chain, and this is where I kind of think just cutting the tank and cutting the bad Darkdramon is probably for the deck's overall benefit, because that allows you to just run cards more efficiently. So as far as what we got a lot of rookies. So I think our rookie lineup is pretty okay. We're pretty slim on the level 4s. The only other level 4 I would consider is probably the blocker, and I don't necessarily think that's good. So our level 4s are okay. We would probably want another egg. So So we would probably want another egg, and I think the next best egg is probably either Hotmon, if we're playing Black Tamers, and probably Missymon. I really like Missymon for the reboot, because that could be really annoying in terms of recursive value for some of our Digimon. Because, like, reboot on Sealstramon is just really good, because you swing, your swing is safe, and then you unsuspend. Yes, you want your Digimon to die, but the point is, like, you're trying to get them to kill it, and that's wasting their resources. And then as far as, like, just some other cards, it would probably just be more removal options, to be honest. Just to have a beefier security. So I would consider running more Tamers. So I would consider going up on the Izzy, so that way I'm guaranteed to start at 3. And then I would probably go up on the Pride Memory Boost, because Pride Memory Boost is absolutely insane in this deck. And then probably just like Quake, and he's not running Black Memory Boost, so I could run like a Black Memory Boost or two. But because I'm already running 2 Prides, I don't necessarily think it's that needed. And then I guess Iron Fisted Onslaught, really. Like, just have a super beefy security. So I think this is pretty alright. It's nothing like insane, but it's pretty decent, because like if you could get your Commandramons to stick and you're just pressuring the opponent, like the removal options just really put a lot of threat on the opponent, where it's like, okay, if they bring out too early, removal option to kill it. You could probably change out Quake Blast for something a little bit more efficient. Do we have anything actually more efficient? You could Dark Roar. Dark Roar or Laser Cannon, those are like your next best options. You could do Dark Side Attack, but I just like the big beefiness that you could have your security be. So I think like something like this is probably fine for D Brigades. Again, nothing's really changing in terms of the core fundamentals of the deck, which leads into the deck's overall benefits. Is the less that you're able to change about the deck, the higher chance you have at being able to perform. So I don't exactly know if black base is actually better than red base. just because there's a lot more creative liberties that are going to have to be replaced. So, as far as where some of the easy substitutions are in terms of cards, you're obviously going to be losing out on the Greymon for another black Greymon. So I think like compared to the other black Greymons, the only other viable one is the jamming, which isn't bad. Having the jamming isn't bad. I would probably go heavier on the blocker and lower on the jamming. Just because this one's a little bit more relevant than the jamming, just because a lot of our top end is going to have reboot anyway. Then as far as Agumon changes, we obviously will have to cut the Searcher Agumon for the Black Searcher Agumon. Then we're going to have to cut the Greymon, or the Agumon X antibody for the Black Agumon X antibody. And then the last slot is kind of a wild slot, because we don't really have anything that it's doing. So if you wanted to, it could just be something like the Blocker Agumon, just because it is literally the only Agumon we have currently. It's not great by any stretch of the means, and it's not actually doing anything. So if you wanted to, you could just run like a Floodgate or something in its place. So let's look at Black Rookies. Because I know Black Rookies, most of the time the Black Rookies do kind of suck. I think like actually the best Black Rookie, if I were to not use the Agumon and kind of ruin the Agumon synergy, would be the Sunnerizumon. Just because like if I'm already not trying to gain a lot of value off of like X antibody, then Sunnerizumon just makes the most sense. Just because I don't need to use this card on top of it. I could save it for this or hard play it or do something else. So I think Sunnerizumon just makes the most sense as the other rookie to use. Then the eggs are actually pretty easy. Because Black has some of the worst Digitamas in the game currently. So we'll get rid of those Koromons, and then we literally have a Koromon to functionally replace it. Except the draw off of this Koromon is a little bit different. So it's not as progressive. Because during the opponent's turn, when an opponent's Digimon is deleted, if this Digimon has Greymon in its name, draw a card. So it's relying on us utilizing our deletion-based effects against the opponent. So it's still not that great of an egg. So if you really wanted to for the DP boost, you could actually just use Kipurimon. Or you could think about using, not Kipurimon, but Hotmon instead. So maybe I'll go like 4 Hotmons, and then 1 of the Koromon, the Screaming Koromon. Just because without the Cool Boys, I'd probably go up on the Yuyas, and then what other Black Tamers do we have? Because Black Tamer quality is also pretty low. We could use Maki. So Maki also would make us want to use Tapir. So maybe Maki isn't exactly the best answer, but it's not a terrible one. We could actually think about using Yuji. Just because when an X antibody Digimon is moved out of our raising area, then we get a gain of memory and draw card. Like, it's not terrible. And then it helps us fill up our stack, which really isn't doing anything. But it's something. We could use the Searcher to search for X antibody traded Digimon with Coda. Like, that's not bad. So, like, Black has some stuff that it can do. It's just not all the time that great. I think Maki is like easily the best one just because she's helping with the tempo, and that's kind of like where the deck is struggling. So I think like maybe 3 Makis and then 2 Yuyas is pretty good. This allows us to maybe cut the Sunnerizumons, even though I think the damage potential off of this card is like actually insane. So I'd probably go 2 Tsunas and then 2 Tapirs. So we do have some flexibility here on what we want to run. So I'd probably go up on the Hades Force, swap out the red memory boost for black memory boost. Cut out the X antibodies. Cut out the Omnimons. And then I have, what, 4 card slots left? So 4 card slots to kind of just do whatever you want. There's just playing around with ratios with the extra card slots just to help curve out the deck a little bit better. And this is just one approach that you could take to the black side of things, because since black X antibodies still does have a lot of support, we could just basically play Alphamon without the Alphamon. So we could run Dorumons instead of literally all of these. Then we could run Dorus, and we could run Yugis, and we could run Kodas. Then we have the one Doru Gray. And then since we are not running Alphamons, we probably don't need Gradimon or Grademon. And instead we would probably just capitalize on Hisaryu. Even though, yeah, we would probably capitalize on Hisaryu. And then outside of that, what else would we play? Oh, we need the other searcher. And then we could run like an Agu X if we really wanted to, but this is the part where it's just like, eh. Like, I don't necessarily think this is any better or any worse. Like, you're just trying to basically work with what you got. And this is where I think, like, the red base for Greymon is just straight up easier. And, like, this is basically just Alphamon without the Alphamon, which isn't bad because there's still just a lot of X antibody synergies. It's just more awkward and hasn't put up any actual competitive results. So let's see, what else do we got? Oh, I need the Dorumons. So the Dorugamons. What else do we got? Oh, I could just run the discard stuff, even though discarding really doesn't do anything for the deck, which is a little bit unfortunate. Red. So 4 Yugi, so I could go 4-2-2, which is mediocre. Actually, I would probably cut the Yugas because he's not doing anything anymore. And then I could still keep Hades Force. I could still keep this in. So what I would probably run 4 Black Memory Boosts just for the consistency. And then I would just run basically Alphamon options. That makes the most sense to me. So let's go with options. So Alphamon options is just a lot of extra defense. So we're going to run 2 copies of Final Zubagon. We're going to run 2 Breath of the Gods, 2 Final Zubagon, 1 Ultimate Flare, and then we obviously have Hades Force. And then we still have 4 card slots left. Jeez. So, 3 of them. So we have basically another rookie to run. So, Black Rookie. I'm just going to fill this in just because that's what it normally is for Alphamon. But I don't necessarily know if that exactly works here. So you could just basically build Black War Greymon in 2 different ways. Basically having it be, I can't believe I'm not Alphamon. And then you could have him basically be, I can't believe I'm not Red. It's going to be awkward no matter which way you stretch it. And again, I don't know which one is going to be the better build for this type of a format. But yeah, as far as like what the Alphamon-esque variant of the deck looks like, this is pretty much it. And yeah, so this is the last deck on the list, I believe. Yes. So as far as all of the decks that I'm expecting to do well and perform possibly well in this monocolor type of environment, these are all of the decks that I was thinking of, a lot of different variants and all of their builds in a rough and quick and dirty way on how you could possibly shift each one of these decks to be able to accommodate the lack of multicolor format. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.